This week on the Final Dump, things really don't seem to be getting a whole lot better for the Green Bay Packers. A third loss in a row. We'll break down every part of this loss to the Washington Commanders, what to do with the offense, Aaron Rodgers, the offensive line, Amari Rodgers, plus a look ahead to the Buffalo Bills in Week 8. It's all coming up this week on the Final Dump.
News dump.
News dump, yay!
News dump.
I mean, that's kind of a loaded question.
It's a landslide!
It's the Final Dump, presented by Game On Wisconsin.
And welcome to the Final Dump. I am Brendan Dworzinski. He is Matt Freilich. The Green Bay Packers are 3-4, and it is not getting any better. Hence the episode of today's show. Welcome in, everybody. And we've got a lot to get to on the show today. And to be completely honest with you, not a whole lot of it is very positive. We'll talk about the passing game and the fact that it has just been totally stuck in the mud. The offensive line changing for the good, but also for the bad, because we don't know what David Bakhtiari maybe will ever be again. Not to be super hyperbolic here, but it is a question worth asking, so we'll get to that. The punt return game is as big of a turd as it has ever been after yet another fumble by Amari Rodgers, so we'll have to get to that. We will look ahead to the game with the Bills coming up this next Sunday on Sunday Night Football. Good Lord, that might be a snuff film. And there's been a lot of rebuild talk over the last 24 hours or so. I think some of it may be a little overdone. Some of it, there are some fair arguments. We'll talk about all that coming up on the Final Dump tonight. Matt, this sucked. Like this Sunday was not a whole lot of fun. I think we were both thinking, and we both made the prediction on last week's show, it's going to be an ugly game. Don't think the offense is going to necessarily come alive, but they should have enough to beat the Taylor Heineke-led Washington Commanders. And they came out flat as can be, had to put together a comeback at the end of the game that fell flat, ended with a pitchy woo-woo play. Shout out to SVP. I mean, I don't really think, I don't want to say it can't get worse, because it can always get worse. But it really is the most down in the dumps feeling, at least that I've had about this team, certainly since 2018, and maybe even before that. It is just, this team's in a bad place. They are down horrendous, as the kids would say right now. And to be completely honest with you, so am I.
Yeah, down astronomically. It's brutal, man. Like, I keep reflecting on just the fact that, like, you preview the season, you look and, like, these 4 games were supposed to be really formidable wins. And, like, then I even dove into it more yesterday, you know, just my pity and my sorrows, and just like, think of the quarterbacks they went up against, man. Like, you couldn't get wins against. I like Taylor Heineke. I think he's a tougher matchup for the Packers than Carson Wentz. We don't have to go down that soapbox for me with Taylor Heineke, but Bailey Zappi and just the way they were playing that game, it's just consistently. Now you look at it, it's like, okay, you got the Bills, Lions, Cowboys with Dak, Titans are coming together. Eagles are probably they're probably the best team in the NFC. Yep. Maybe they won't be in a month from now, but you get the point. Is like, it doesn't get any easier here if you were trying to figure some stuff out, and whatever experiments you were trying to have, whether it be offensive line, how you're running the offense, secondary, front 7 personnel, receiving core, it didn't work. Truthfully, like, there were some things yesterday that was great. The offensive line play, like you mentioned, it was great to see a complete shakeup. It was a little bit, tongue-in-cheek, though, with David Bakhtiari being out, a little bittersweet with that. But at the end of the day, this is just not the team we expected. I think there's, again, so many things to go into it. I do feel, though, as we continue to progress through the season, the things that we expected to get, better have gotten better, but there's just a few not minor things. There's a few glaring things that need to be remedied and fixed, because everything else seems to be coming along, whether it's the defense, whether it's special teams. The offense is super out of sync, but it's like, you look at the offense, like, they got the running game to be there. Tight ends really aren't a factor in this offense. It would be nice to see Tonyan get more involved. Offensive line has done what it's needed to do. It's really coming down to the pass catchers and the guy throwing the damn pigskin. And it's a tough scene out there for the boys in green and yellow.
So with that point, where do we go from here? I mean, what needs to change from this point on for this Packers team to get the offense going? And I think you have to mention the complementary parts of this too, Matt, because the offense going 3 and out, or getting 1 first down and having to punt, turning it over, whatever it may end up being, when you keep having to do that, You keep leaving the defense out on the field. You are exhausting that defense. Then you end up with a situation where the Commanders are able to drive down the field, end of the third quarter, into the fourth quarter on Sunday. They just burn off clock. They exert their will. They play bully ball, essentially, and the Packers can't get off the field. That's a defensive problem. You can't force a punt in that situation, force a field goal early or whatever. But when you keep putting that defense out there, it's not a surprise that 75% or more of the way through the game, those dudes are exhausted. Those dudes are burned out. I don't know what to do to get this offense clicking from this point forward. And we spent so much time last week talking about the coaching problems and talking about what is going on with Aaron Rodgers. What is it going to take for Rodgers to figure it out? I don't know what that's going to be. And I wish I had a better answer. I wish I had something better than, oh, I don't know. But I mean, we've got the quarterback looking to the sideline and saying, what the F are we doing? And it got caught on camera multiple times. There was even a hilarious shot of him doing it where he said, what the, and then someone walked in front of him. And after the person that walked away, you could see him say, are we doing? So you knew what word was said in the middle right there. But I just don't know what it takes. I don't think Aaron Rodgers has played very well. I think that's very obvious. I would not go as far as some folks, and this is just reaction from Twitter, which we know is not, real life, but a lot of it's all Rodgers' fault. He's overthrowing everyone. He's underthrowing everyone. He can't do it anymore. He's washed. I don't think there's that much blame on Aaron Rodgers, but he's obviously a major part of the problem. The receiving core right now is not good enough. I think that's fair to say. I believe the number is 11 drops over the last 2 games. You can't have that on games where you need to win on the margins. You can't have these guys dropping passes. We saw receivers running the wrong routes or just not following Aaron Rodgers the way veterans would. Those are things that come with time. Unfortunately, the Packers don't have a lot of time here. I don't think you're going to get a wide receiver in a trade who's going to completely change your offense. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe it is worth it at this point just to get a veteran in there if you're not going to have Randall Cobb for several weeks because of IR. Allen Lazard's walking around the facility in a sling on Monday due to his shoulder. They don't know when he's going to be good. I don't know. I just wish we had some sort of clarity beyond another platitude-filled post-game presser for Matt LaFleur. Well, we've got to coach better. We saw some good things. Dude, then do it. Then coach better. Then get something better out of your quarterback. It's just the same old thing, and I'm not sure what little tweak is going to fix things at this point. The game opened really well, Matt. There was a really nice touchdown drive on the second drive of the game. Even the first drive looked like it had a little promise before Lazard, who's the most trustworthy of any of these receivers, dropped that pass on third down. I don't know. I'm just not sure where this team goes. I just know that as much as I feel like there are little things that once those get solved, it will become a more complete whole and the offense will start to click. What is it going to take to actually get to fixing those things? Because right now it feels like this team is stuck in quicksand trying to run out and going nowhere.
I mean, to answer your question, I think it's just a lot of it comes down to the relationship with Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers. Truthfully, I feel like there's a lot of times where they might be going into the week and saying, hey, we're going to be able to run the snot out of the ball versus this team, or this is what we need to execute on this team. And it just sometimes offensively, I think it just goes out the window. And it's a really tough thing because, part of what we do as fans, as streamers, YouTubers, podcasters, bloggers, whatever, is we pontificate and we analyze everything, whether it's the X's and O's or the numbers or the decision making. But the one that's really, really tough to understand is the dynamic between when certain plays are called and when certain liberties are taken by Aaron Rodgers to decide to, hey, we're going to pass the ball here, or I'm going to check out of something. And it's almost like defenses are playing into their hand now, where I want to say there was, late in the third quarter, middle of the third quarter, there's a couple plays where I felt like the Commanders were specifically bringing guys up in the box, giving Rodgers certain looks so he would just check out of a run play. I felt that happened a few times. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't, but that's just I feel like he just wants to trust himself so much. He doesn't trust the offensive line, trust the running backs, which I don't understand why either of those would be a mistake. I mean, I think without David Bakhtiari, his boy out there, his co-pilot in the, whatever the golf cart's called, which I should know.
Lovin' 69.
Thank you. Great rig. But dude, sometimes you're not going to have your co-pilot there. You're going to have 5 other guys in front of you blocking and pass protecting and etc. And you just got to accept that those guys are going to be, that's who you're riding with today. That's just the nature of the beast. But I really think it's so difficult because you talk about Luke Getsy going to the Bears, or you talk about Nathaniel Hackett going to the Broncos. there hasn't been, I mean, they've fallen off as well. Like their stuff doesn't, their stuff stinks pretty bad in those offenses they're in now, kind of completely different situations, but it's not like you can point to one thing and say, no, Nathaniel Hackett and Dangerous are, lighting the world on fire and slinging Subway footlongs around. Like no one's really doing that well from the 2021 Packers team and coaching staff. So it's really tough because I think the talent is there. I shook my head when you were mentioning Randall Cobb being out and getting a veteran receiver. I forgot that I heard that Lazard had the banged up shoulder today. So it's like, I actually, in that moment, I was like, damn, Deshaun Jackson sounded pretty good last week. Now you think about it, he sounds even better this week. And like now Odell Beckham sounds better. Like I don't think it's a great solution, but I don't know who they're going to throw the ball to anymore. Like Dobbs is going to still have these rookie blunders. Cobb, you don't know he's going to come back, like you mentioned. Christian Watson, you can't really trust him. Sammy Watkins, the same thing. I mean, you're seeing Samori Toure getting looks. Now you're seeing Amari Rodgers, who we'll definitely get to. I made sure the executive producer put him on the rundown today. Like, Amari Rodgers has like 40 snaps in the last 2 or 3 weeks, like on offense. Like, it's just because we know what we've come to expect from a Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers offense, and it's not so far gone that could still be the case, but they just don't have the weapons they once had. It's a different offense than either of them have probably, definitely Rodgers has played in my opinion, and either of them have been together with. But at the end of the day, it's a lot of the decision-making going on that just happens on the fly, I think. It's nothing malicious. I think it's just like, I'm confident in what my abilities are, and it's hilarious to see Rodgers lose his cool like that. It's frustrating, but at the end of the day, dude, it's like you're kind of part of the problem too, the way you're throwing the ball yesterday. I think your receivers hung you out to dry, but like you still weren't doing the best you probably could out there, and it's kind of shitty to point fingers, but that's who we come to expect from 12.
Yeah, and that's the disappointing thing, is that it's just it doesn't feel like anyone is taking control to make this better. And Again, I said this a lot last week because it's an important caveat. I'm not inside 1265 Lombardi Avenue, right? You're not inside the facility. We don't know exactly what is happening at practice every day. We do not know exactly what team meetings are like, what film study is like, what Matt LaFleur is telling Aaron Rodgers, other members of the offense. Don't know for certain. All we know is what is being shown and expressed publicly. What we're getting publicly is shots of Aaron Rodgers on Fox saying, "What the bleep are we doing?" to his sideline multiple times over the course of the game, rolling his eyes, twisting his head around when guys drop passes, miss routes, he misses passes, whatever it ends up being. Matt LaFleur giving us platitude after platitude in post game, and just a bunch of guys on the field who don't look especially inspiring. And we'll get to the offensive line more in a little bit, but this wasn't a game where the problem was Aaron Rodgers was getting hit constantly. That was not the issue in this game. The issue is that these dudes are not on the same page. And by these dudes, I mean the triumvirate of your Hall of Fame quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, your head coach, who is off to a historic wins and losses start in Matt LaFleur, and your wide receivers, who are right now a bunch of nobodies. And that's not to say that Romeo Doubs won't be somebody and hasn't at times shown that he's somebody this year, because he has. He absolutely has. But he's not quite there yet. He's still a rookie wide receiver. That is a hard thing to be in the NFL. Not everybody is Justin Jefferson or Jamar Chase coming out and being a superstar right from the very beginning, especially more often than not guys who the Packers have drafted under this current regime, because they love to draft freak athletes who get coached into being great football players. Sometimes that works. Defensively, you know who that's worked for? Rashawn Gary, who has become one of the best edge players in the NFL. Jair Alexander was a little bit like that, although he was great from the very beginning. Sometimes that doesn't work out, and you end up with picks who are just bodies, who are just guys. Amari Rodgers doesn't really fit that because he wasn't a super crazy athlete coming out of Clemson anyway, but you end up with guys who have high RAS scores or whatever, metrics the Packers have that are similar and more advanced than that. So you end up in this situation where you haven't really addressed that position. You tried to put a Band-Aid on it with a couple rookies right away, and Christian Watson and Romeo Doubs, both of whom I like, both of whom I think can be effective players. Watson's obviously hurt right now, but both of whom it was going to take some time with regardless. And you just end up in this situation where the quarterback is pissed off at the coach because they are on different pages about what they actually want to run. He's on different pages with the receiver because they're just not experienced and they're trying to gain that on the fly. The receivers are trying to learn the coach's offense, and the coach is frustrated about all of it, but is bad at expressing things publicly, or if not bad, he just refuses to do it. So we're left saying, well, what the hell do we do from here? I mean, what do you think needs to be done? I know our guy, Iowa Joe, on the Game on Wisconsin YouTube, he says, well, you've got to go do something because you're just out of bodies. And we were talking about that earlier. I don't know who you go bring in, but Matt, I don't think you can go into that game against the Bills and say, yeah, we genuinely think we are going to be in the best position possible if our lineup for the next several weeks is going to be Romeo Doubs and Juwann Winfree and Samori Toure and Amari Rodgers. Like, you just can't live with that. And the Bills game, it is what it is. I mean, it's a tough part of the schedule, and the injuries are obviously not anything you can control. But going forward beyond that, you've got to do something, because you can't live with the bodies you have right now, because you barely have any bodies right now. But then you run into the issue, how quickly can someone get acclimated to this offense? If you went out and got, Brandon Cooks. Brandon Cooks is a nice player. Could he help this team in theory on paper? Sure he could. How quickly will he be able to adjust to the offense? These are all questions that need to be asked, and I don't know if those answers will come quickly enough to get this team where it needs to be to make a second half push.
If you want to see Aaron Rodgers curse to the sideline more, yeah, put in Juwann Winfree, who had that drop 2 weeks ago. Put in Tyler Fumagalli, Travis. Maybe he can revitalize his small stint he had with the Eagles.
I believe you're transposing Troy Fumagalli, the former Wisconsin tight end, with Travis Fulgham.
Bring him in.
Bring him in. Why not? Bring him in.
Yeah. Pick him up. So I don't know. Like, the receiving situation is just going to be, it's going to be kind of in shambles, honestly. I think until they can get some of these guys healthy, I don't think they want to go out and bring in a new guy to get him acclimated and then only have him activated for 1 or 2 games when Watson is healthy. I mean, this is all assumptive that these guys are going to come back healthy, or at least 2 out of the 3 between Cobb, Lazard, and Christian Watson. In no scenario, I feel like they'd be confident rolling out Winfree or Troy or Travis or whomever. So I don't know. It's a tough spot. It really, for the receivers especially, because they're not even like, it's almost like no one's even developed in the passing game at all. Like, it's not even like the tight ends that have developed or done anything that's been significant that we didn't have high expectations for, but they haven't really done much. I mean, besides Aaron Jones's incredible leaping catch yesterday, they've been pretty anemic in the passing game with 33 and 28, which is frustrating. And they threw it a little bit more yesterday to them. Didn't run the ball as much, which you'd like to see a balance with it that way. One thing I want to mention too is just like Tom Clements. I feel like just throwing his name into the ether. I want to say a couple weeks ago they talked about how Tom Clements was a really good collaborator, good kind of a in between LaFleur and Rodgers, being that he has a great relationship with Rodgers. He's obviously a coach first. And it's just like kind of the chemistry between an old head, maybe a guy that's, a coach and trying to establish himself. I thought that was supposed to be a good dynamic there. Mm-hmm. I'm shocked that hasn't been more of a talking point. I feel like it was brought up a couple of weeks ago. It was kind of gone to the wayside, but that's definitely something I'm still kind of frustrated by, because they brought him back for a reason, right? Probably to fill the void from Nathaniel Hackett. And he's got good continuity with Rodgers. I just don't know what the situation is and why he's not speaking up more, because you got to think he feels the type of way the offense is going, and you'd like to hear some conversation come from him. But the quarterback coach, you're not going to get many sound bites from. At the end of the day, everyone's got to play better. Rodgers isn't playing great. I'm the biggest Rodgers supporter there is, but I felt like most of the game was him falling short of expectations. I felt like as the game dragged on, the receivers started being less effective, and that's when his frustrations boiled over with himself already. So at the end of the day, I don't know what happens with the passing, because it's only going to get tougher down the road, because there's some pretty good secondaries coming up in the next 4 or 5 weeks.
I want to address a couple of things that have come in on the Game on Wisconsin YouTube feed, and appreciate you guys always chiming in on the live show. 2 things from our guy, Joe. One, did Watkins re-injure, or did he just pull up on that one deep pass? He's just in a constant state of injury. He's Hammy Watkins for a reason. I mean, this is who he has always been. This is always who Sammy Watkins was with the Chiefs. It's who he was with the Bills. It's who he was with the Rams. that it is just who he was with the Ravens for 1 year last year. He's just in a perpetual state of ouch. And putting any number of eggs in that basket going into the year. This is why I was so down on that move. And I had people who have much bigger followings than me who found my tweet and were like, oh yeah, why even bother trying? It's like, no, dude, this guy is always hurt and he is never a reliable target. People rely on that one game he had with the Chiefs to open the 2019 season where he had 3 touchdowns and 180 or 190 yards and rely on that as he's still a great weapon. He's Hammy Watkins and he will always be Hammy Watkins. And I know that's not really what the initial point that Joe brought up was, but it's just another example of a guy who you cannot trust in this offense. There's a reason we didn't bring him up. Congrats. He had the one big play at the end of the game and Rodgers seems to like him. That's because Sammy Watkins is the self-described reptilian solar being who is a member potentially of a cult, praise amen, or the mental act. That's what they were called. When he was with the Chiefs, we did a whole segment on this on our show in Topeka. A whole thing about the weird potential pseudo cult that Sammy Watkins was tweeting about. So yeah, they're on the same, mental plane. But other than that, he's just not a reliable target for this offense. So he might have gotten hurt on that play. There's no way to know because he's just in a perpetual state of, ow, something hurts. Oh, I pulled something. Also an interesting note from Joe too, that kind of interesting. Rodgers seems to have regressed since Clemens has been brought back. I don't know what the connection is there. Maybe it's coincidental. Maybe it's something more than that. But yeah, something is off, whether it's because of the coaches who left, Getsy, who I know Rodgers had a good relationship with, or Hackett, who we know that Rodgers liked, whatever it is, the re-bringing back in Clemens. I don't know for certain what the issue is. All I know is that something is wrong. And somebody, we talked about accountability so much last week, Matt, someone needs to be held accountable for that. Also want to touch on this too. From Jude on the Game on Wisconsin YouTube. And Jude, appreciate you chiming in as well. Says that just can't get behind the sticks with bad penalties. And yeah, penalties were extremely frustrating on Sunday. But chimes in, I don't get why the fans are so negative on this team. I appreciate the optimism. I think being positive in times of adversity, that is a good thing. And I appreciate that. And I have tried to be as optimistic as I can be. But I can also tell you this, during this 3-game losing streak, the Packers are 26th in the NFL out of 32 teams in EPA per play, expected points added per play, which has become the new en vogue nerd stat, if you will. And it is a very useful statistic. Packers are 26th in the NFL. You know who they're behind? Washington by 4 spots over the last 3 weeks. A Cowboys team that has only had their starting quarterback for 1 week. A Colts team is 25th that is benching its multi-million-dollar quarterback for Sam Ehlinger, Mr. Texas's back himself, who has never done anything of consequence in the NFL. The Packers are behind those teams right now. They are 1 spot, Matt, in the last 3 weeks ahead of the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did you watch Sunday Night Football? That team sucks. They are absolute garbage on offense. Matt Canada is one of the worst offensive coordinators in the NFL, bar none. And that's the company the Packers are keeping right now. So I love the optimism. I would love to feel more optimistic. I probably have been more optimistic than a bunch of people. I think we both have. Really, we both thought the Packers would win each of the last 2 weeks against the Jets and the Commanders, but it's just not there. And I think the stats back up why there's a lot of concern right now.
No, it's I just like I said to start the show, like it's you expect these to be easy wins. And I know it's any given Sunday, this, that, and the third. But if you tell me like Carson Wentz is going to be out, you're going to tell me that basically half the receiving corps for the Commanders is out. Chase Young hasn't played most of the year. Like, I just don't understand how we can't win this game. Like, yes, you mentioned flags were an issue, but at the end of the day, like, you got to overcome that. I thought it was a little bit of a zebra show at some point, which was quite frustrating, but that didn't stop, our guys from catching the ball. They got to play better. That's it. There's no other way to put it. And I don't know what the situation is. Like, we've been dancing around at the passing game. I think it's a lot of factors, but at the end of the day, this is a different offense than previously ran from Rodgers. And I think he's just kind of stubborn, to be honest.
You did mention earlier in the show that the offensive line was showing some better play, and we should get to that because the offensive line in and of itself was better in this game. Like I mentioned before, the problem for the offense in this game was not that Rodgers was getting hit over and over. Now, after those first couple of drives, the run game on the very few instances they used it wasn't especially good with that blocking, but the offensive line was far from the biggest problem in this game. Like you could argue it has been in prior games, and have to give some shout outs. Yosh Nijman, he goes in, plays right tackle. We heard that he had been repping at right tackle all week, and they didn't want to flip him back to left tackle because they found out late in the week Bakhtiari wouldn't be able to go. So they stuck him at right tackle, had a couple holding calls, but he was far from a massive issue in the game. He did well enough, and we've been clamoring for that. So it's hard to be both a beggar and a chooser. Shout out to our guy, Zach Tom, man. He went in there, and he was a goddamn stud. He was awesome at left tackle, and pardon my French if it insults your sensibilities. I apologize about that. That's, Lord's name in vain, all that. But he was awesome in that game. Did not allow a single pressure from left tackle. This dude is a rookie who has never played meaningful snaps, steps in at left tackle at the last minute because David Bakhtiari can't go. And we'll get to Bach in a minute because that even when things are good, it feels like things are going wrong. We'll get to him. But to have Tom step in there and be that good right off the rip, to have Nijman go in there and for the most part be pretty good, Elton moves back inside to left guard, all of a sudden, hey, he plays pretty damn well. That was a very impressive outing for that offensive line. And again, for an offense that seemingly isn't doing anything right, Matt, seeing them take that step, seeing new guys come in and figure it out, that is at the very least promising for that unit.
Absolutely, man. It was a roller coaster. Like 10:30, find out Bakhtiari's inactive. It's like, what the hell? Like, he almost had 70 snaps last week. Like, and the week before, it was, they said all the issues with the turf possibly and the flying and et cetera, et cetera. It seemed like he was completely on the up and up because that London game was an outlier versus the Giants. And then it's like, okay, well, what's the combination can it be? And they, completely took just everyone by surprise with all the different shuffling they did. Seeing Zach Tom in there, I've been drinking the Kool-Aid a ton since talking to you the last few weeks, and I'm just like, why not give him an opportunity? Did I expect him to be at left tackle? Absolutely not. And just like I was shocked. I was more happy to see that Royce Newman was out of there. That made me a lot, more pleased. Elton to the left side. Okay, interesting. It was just like there were so many moving parts and guys flip-flopping and just like it was a little strange to digest, but at the end of the day, I was like, I kind of had a lot of faith, to be honest. Like the person I was most concerned about was Yosh Nijman, because I felt like the last couple of weeks we had built ourselves up to like, he can't play right tackle. I'm like, he did fine. Like no one on that offensive line lost this game for the Packers at all. And like we talked about last week, all the pass rushers that they still had, I omitted Montez Sweat when we were, highlighting the game last week. You brought him up too. It's like you got the Jonathan Allen, Darren Payne, like they're able to get after the passer pretty effectively, and with a completely new combination, a guy that's never even played in the league. I mean, I was super impressed. Like it's so that there is a silver lining there. Like that's how we started at the top of the show. Like there are some major issues. We've hit on a lot of them already, probably a few more to go, and we could even riff on them for a few more hours. But I feel like the offensive line is, categorically one of the best strengths of this team because they invest some equity. Sure, there's times there it's just not great. They get blown up the middle, or was it 2 weeks ago versus the Giants, like they were getting absolutely throttled. Josh Myers was getting pushed back. Royce Newman looked awful. Well, one of those guys is sitting down now. One of those guys is a second-year player who was basically hurt all of last year. So at the end of the day, I'm not gonna I'm not as panicked as I am with the passing game. That's for damn sure. I just wish I would have liked to see them with Zach Tom. I just expected them to run the ball a little bit more. It just seemed, and then like you put Elton inside, it also seemed like they'd run the ball a little bit more. That was kind of my thought when I saw that lineup. That never was the case, unfortunately. It really just seemed like, okay, this seems like a run-first offensive line, which made me, I don't know why I went with that strategy going into the game. It just seemed right at the time. But truthfully, like offensive line is great. Loving to see the combinations they have. It'll be interesting to see how they progress because, like you mentioned, they didn't find out late till David Bakhtiari was going to be not available for the game. Yosh should get more opportunities at right. We'll see how that trickles down. Does Zach Tom move to the interior somehow? Does Zach Tom slip inside and Elton go to right? Like I have no idea. It's fun to hypothesis about, but truthfully, like it's you almost kind of forget how good they were because the game was just so ugly. But again, none of the ugliness was from that offensive line, which is great. None of the issues that were being caused by not running the ball from the offensive line, Rodgers' decision making, the lack of accuracy and the drops from the receivers, none of that's their fault. They did exactly their job, and it was a truly one of the best things that came from that game. Devondre Campbell pick six was pretty cool.
Yeah, I thought Campbell played pretty well in the game. We hit on him a lot over the last couple of weeks. I thought he was better. He was playing a little looser. I didn't see his PFF grade for the game, and I haven't gone back and watched the film yet. But I thought, at least at first blush, like he played pretty well in the contest. The thing about Zach Tom coming in and playing so well right off the rip, Matt, is that you need to have that insurance, because we don't know on a week-to-week basis what David Bakhtiari is going to be able to do. And that sucks. And I just feel bad for the guy. I mean, he has tried so hard and has given it his all. And when he's been on the field, I saw this narrative on Twitter the other day that apparently he hasn't been playing well. Man, he's been really darn good. For a dude coming off of a serious knee injury who really hadn't played in over a year, save for one half in a meaningless game against the Lions last year when he got banged up again. The way he has played, I think, has been admirable at worst and pretty damn good at best. But if you don't know week to week that he's going to be able to go, you have to have that insurance. And that is what Zach Tom provides you. Again, at the very least, I'd love to get him in there all the time. But if you can't do that, at least well, in a pinch, we can throw him in at left tackle and we're going to be just fine. I feel bad for Bakhtiari, and you still have to play him when he's ready to go, right? I mean, he is still a good player. He is still a far above average left tackle when he's good to go. It just puts the team in a bad spot when, he could wake up on Sunday morning and just say, hey, my knee is shot, man. I just don't feel like I'm ready to go. Well, you're not going to put him out there, and you're not going to do anything drastic with him. You just sort of have to ride the wave, and that makes Zach Tom, honestly, more valuable than I think you can even put into words. It's a very unique situation. It's an unfortunate situation, but thank God he can go, because if he was not good right away, then you'd have some even bigger, more consequential problems with all Bakhtiari concerns.
So a couple of things. One, the same people talking about Bakhtiari is not playing well, probably the same people that were clamoring Twitter this morning talking about they should trade David Bakhtiari. Like, that's a scenario that even makes sense. Like, that, unbelievable. That's one. Number two, were you surprised? And also, I want to mention that Aaron Rodgers in the postgame yesterday, he said he found out the same time Bach was out as weeded, being the media or the general public. So that's kind of interesting. So it must have been something that flared up over the weekend. But you being the Zach Tom stan that you are, I don't think it's surprising to see him finally get in the rotation. But were you surprised to see the position that he was slotted in for his first start?
So it sounds like it was all, and I'm just basing this off of some clips of what LaFleur had to say on Monday, but it sounded like it was really just a matter of practice time and not wanting to flip Yash from right to left, which I get. I mean, if you're repping something all week and then all of a sudden, hot change at the very end, you don't want to throw him off. It was Yash's first career start and possibly appearance overall at right tackle, but we've been asking for that. And again, he did well enough. I'm not going to complain about sticking with that. And I guess Tom has been your left tackle at least part-time while Bach hasn't been able to go. So you stick him where he knows. I guess I was surprised. I figured you could slot Tom in at right tackle and he'd be okay, and Nyman at left. But, I will at least give the coaching staff the benefit of the doubt that I understand why they went with that, even if it was a little surprising. But, in retrospect, cool. Now we know that Tom and Nyman can handle those spots with at least some level of respectability. But yeah, at the time I thought, whoa, why aren't these two on the opposite side? That would make a lot more sense to me.
All right, that's all I got for you. I don't know. I want to riff on Zach Tom, but it's just like, I don't know the next time we're going to see him. How do they feel about the right side? But fair. All right.
Yeah, well, and that's a good point too, is that we don't know when he's going to play again. And I would imagine that's tough on a rookie. It doesn't matter how good of a rookie you are to not know when you're going to get regular playing time, if you are ever going to get that, or if you're essentially just the break glass in case of emergency guy. That's a tough spot to be in. And that's, it's been talked about. We've already talked about it on this show when it comes to the receivers, but that is something that is a concern for this team now, along with just not playing well in general in most phases, is, man, these injuries are piling up. The Bach concern is just always going to be there. You've got the receivers. One injury in the secondary, and this team is in deep, deep trouble. And respect to Rudy Ford because he played better than I think anyone expected him to when he was signed, and he's had to sub in defense a few times. Keyshawn Nixon has had to come in a couple of times and has played respectably on the defensive side of the ball, not just on special teams, but you've got to stay healthy, and that's not something that you can entirely control. The bye will come eventually to get everybody rested up, but man, I feel bad for Bach, and I feel bad for the position the team has been put in. I've been hard on the coaching staff all year. You know that better than anybody, Matt, talking about this every week, but you do feel bad that when you get put in a position 24 hours before game time and you find out, oh, your former all left tackle actually can't go this week, he's not going to be able to go. That obviously throws a wrench in the plans that you don't really expect or plan for. What you can plan for, though, is not having your punt returner fumble the ball again, like he has numerous times. What is it now? 5 career catches and 5 career fumbles. I believe I saw that. That might have been before Amari Rodgers made his catch late in the game on Sunday. He's not good, dude. I mean, he's just not good at returning punts. And offensively, you brought up the number earlier. He's played 40 snaps in the last 2 weeks, which is concerning for a slot receiver who doesn't really have any burst. I mean, credit him for making the catches, I guess. And he put in the effort on the deep ball Rodgers missed him on. I don't know if they missed because Rodgers just overthrew it, if he was late on the route, whatever. I don't know. I haven't, again, gone back and watched the coach's film of it. But why? We have so much evidence. It's up to 26 games now, 25, 27, something like that, in that neighborhood. We have that much evidence that he cannot handle punt return duties. He cannot do it. He is incapable of doing it to a satisfactory degree. He had one decent return to open the game on Sunday, comes back, fumbles, turns it over, boom, Commanders have the ball right near the goal line. You can't live with that. Again, this is a team that needs to win on the margins at this point, not commit the stupid penalties, not give the ball away with turnovers, not fumble the ball on punts way too often. Why do you not make a change at this point? How is there nobody else on this team who is capable of fielding punts? I know Cobb is out of the mix, probably because he's old, but also now because he's injured. I don't know what Dobbs looks like in that case. We saw Watson return a couple kicks, then he gets hurt. I understand that you've got limitations in terms of your personnel. Toure can't catch punts. He's never done that before. That's not something you can throw him in to do. You can't have Dobbs call for a fair catch and then run out of the way. At least give up the field position as long as you're not turning the ball over at this point. I even joked with someone on Twitter during the game, hell, just send 11 after the punter and just hope for a good bounce when the ball finally lands. It's maddening and befuddling that there's so much evidence he cannot do that job. And yet on Monday, well, we're evaluating it. You can't put the ball on the turf. Yeah, Matt, we know. Not you, Matt, him, Matt. We know that's the problem. So why do you make a change? We have ample evidence that it's not working. So when is it finally going to click? We need to try something else. He's a wide receiver who never fielded punts before. You've got those in spades on this team. So why not give it a try?
It's wild. Absolutely wild. When he fumbled that punt, I don't know if I've ever tweeted out faster in my entire life or even I was probably doing like 150 characters a second. Just like he can't be done. He's done. Get him out of there. There's no way. And then they bring him back again. It's like, do they actually have no one else that can field punts or attempt to field punts? Like, I don't understand. And that's what I mentioned earlier is like, there's so many things that have gotten better this year. I feel like that we didn't expect or that we expected to or wanted to. Special teams has been great outside of, a botched, basically a botched game where they had a blocked field goal and a blocked punt, like a couple times. Like everything else coverage-wise has been really, really solid. Just the return game is just absolutely atrocious. Our punts have overall been good. Field goals, kicks have been great. But like, dude, how do you not have another dude to return kicks? And some of this pressure is not all Amari Rodgers' fault because the Packers have neglected finding someone the last 30 years to be able to do this. So that's not entirely his fault. The reputation is there. It's like you're inheriting already a bad situation. Everyone's already jaded towards that part of the team, let alone the special teams group the last 5 years. But dude, like you got to be able to catch the ball. Like they were going to set a record. Was it last year with Mo Draper, the year before, where they weren't going to have the most net yardage? At least if you're catching the ball and fair catching it, you can't lose yards. But like, dude, like dropping the ball, and it's just unexcusable. I was also on a mental pretzel when I saw Samori Toure be activated because I'm like, shit, they're going to give this kid a chance to return kicks. For some reason, I feel like Samori Toure is a punt returner, a kick returner in my head. I don't know what made me ever think that over this offseason. I don't know if it was I'm confusing him with Dobbs that they talked about had potential to do that he did in college. But at the end of the day, it's just not working. And the fact that they keep rolling it out there the same is just there's really like I'm almost speechless when I saw him out there again. I cannot believe it. It's unexcusable. Like that was a huge turning point in the game as well. Like it's not like it was a meaningless play and but just to constantly continue to put 8 out there. I'm sorry, but like, dude, for some reason, third on picks don't work for Brian Gutekunst. It looks like Amari Rodgers is a part of that. He's a victim to that scenario and that just coincidence. But at the end of the day, Amari, man, like I can't believe he's contributing more on the offensive side of the ball than he is in special teams, which is just wild to me if you'd have told me that a year and a half ago.
You make a great point that at some point it's no longer on the player. We know the player can't do it. We know Amari Rodgers cannot handle that responsibility. So who is responsible for continuing to put him out there? And that's a legitimate question too. Rich Bisaccia was not here last year, and Rodgers got an entire year of opportunities to return punts. That wasn't Bisaccia's doing in 2021. I don't know if that's his doing now. And if it is, and he's saying this is still our best option, then holy cow, the rest of the team is terrible. Like, I don't know how you can't have a single dude who can return punts from that group, but if he is actually still the best option and Rich Bisaccia, who clearly knows what he's doing with special teams coaching, is still saying, yeah, that's the best chance we have, then something has gone terribly wrong. Again, I don't know why you don't try, because it cannot get worse. He is the worst punt returner in the NFL. You have the worst punt return situation yet again in the NFL. So why not at least try something different? And you want the stats for you? I've got Samori Toure. He played one season at Nebraska, 2021, after he had transferred. I don't believe he played in 2020, and he transferred from, I think it was Montana State that he transferred from in the Brawl of the Wide rivalry. I believe it was Montana State. He returned 2 punts last year, 2 punt returns, 9 yards. Thank you to Sports Reference for that. So sure, give him a try. Give him a try. It cannot be worse. And that's the thing that has bothered me more, Matt, about this year than anything else. You have seen examples of play calls that don't work, situational awareness that is all out of whack, players in positions where they do not succeed. At least Joe Barry. This is the first time we brought up Joe Barry's name, I think, tonight. I noted this during the game. First possession, I believe it was for the Commanders. Maybe it was their second. 3rd down and long, and guess what? Rasul Douglas had been moved to the boundary, and Jair Alexander had been moved into the slot. It wasn't perfect in the game. It took way too long to figure that out. Like, it should have been figured out in training camp or at least week 1 or week 2 of the season. Finally, they got that figured out, and they had Alexander shadowing McLaurin, which was a double-edged sword in the game as well, but that's a different story. At least there's an adjustment there. Why can't you make an adjustment on the punt return? Because you're right. It is negatively impacting almost every game at this point.
It's like the special teams unit last year. It's like you can't, you're telling me you can't get like 10 guys to run down and cover a punt? Like, that's just not possible to put those guys on the roster. Look at Iowa Joe, dude. Iowa Joe with the stat reference. Toure returned 21 kicks in 2017 at Montana. Like, that's not bad. That's
so it was Montana, not Montana State.
There it is. I just, dude, like, I don't understand how on a 53-man roster and the way that Brian Gutekunst uses the waiver wire, uses practice squads, his own practice squad to cultivate talent, the draft board. Like, how do you not have a guy that can return kicks, or how have you not sniped someone off of wherever, whether it's CFL, USFL, XFL, Arena? Like, how have you not got a guy that can just be an absolute dog back there, stand in the face of 10 guys, 11 guys, including the punter, running down with your head up in the air? It's a dangerous spot to be in. Don't get me wrong. I would never do it. But there's guys that have made a career off that and have been able to be contributors just for that aspect. I don't understand how they can't find a guy. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, it's just maybe when Kylan Hill comes back, there's an opportunity for him there to do that. But I'm not holding my breath on him either at this point. But and he's not going to save the Packers special team unit just by himself. So it's I've actually just accepted the fact that Amari Rogers is going to be the punt returner. Like I'm not kidding. Going to the game yesterday to see Toure not out there was like, that was shocking. But then for him to be back out there, that muff punt is just, there's no, unless you see some guy randomly brought in now, like a Traymon Smith they did last year, a couple years ago, where it's like specifically brought in for that.
Mm-hmm.
That's one thing, but a guy on the practice squad or just that's already on the roster, if there's a guy that's actually activated, that's been activated this year that they put back there now, oh my God, I'll freak out because they could have made the change at any point. So whoever, like you said, whoever's decision is to keep him back there still, I question them dearly.
It just doesn't really make any amount of sense. By the way, great pull, Tremont Smith as well. That's excellent. Your practice squad right now, I mean, can Kawan Baker return punts, the South Alabama product? Corey Ballantyne, Washburn University's own, the Washburn Ichabods, just to my west a little bit, 30 minutes in beautiful, don't quote me on that, Topeka, Kansas. He has great speed. Activate him and have him return punts. He's been in the NFL for several years right now. Travis Fulgham is still around. You mentioned him earlier, Matt. Like, try any of these dudes. Keandre Thomas on the practice squad. Why not give it a try? That when it's this bad, it's not going to get worse. Can you fair catch it and hold on to the ball? If you can do that, congratulations, you're already the best punt returner that the Packers have. It's so infuriating and frustrating that they can't get this figured out. I do want to ask one thing about, and yeah, our guy Iowa Joe mentioned that as well. Corey Ballantyne, he played for the Giants. He was with the Falcons briefly. Might have only been on their practice squad. I think it was the Falcons. Now he's with the Packers. He's got speed, man. He returned kicks at Washburn. D2 repping. I will ride for our my Ichabods guys, but still, just try something. I do want to ask, though, to circle back around to get to my actual point here. We don't have a ton of time, but I do want to bring this up because there has been so much talk about time to rebuild. Oh, this team sucks. Time to sell pieces. Realistically, financially speaking, that doesn't really make sense. What are you going to trade Aaron Rodgers like with that contract? No, you can't do that. What are you going to trade? You mentioned it earlier. You're going to trade David Bakhtiari? No, that doesn't make any sense. And outside of those guys, how many tradable pieces do you actually have? Effectively, no. Aaron Jones? I mean, that's effectively it. What do you make of that talk? Do you think it's something that has a little merit? Do you think it's completely ridiculous? Where do you land on the matter?
I mean, I think it's kind of ridiculous because you look at to see like what the Panthers are doing right now, and it's like they've been a dysfunctional organization since Cam Newton left. You know, essentially Christian McCaffrey was just fell to them kind of, and they were able to use him and win games off that. Sure, they're building with some young talent, but like it's tough to stomach the thought of a rebuild because the Packers have really never done it in our lifetime. I mean, 2018 firing McCarthy, but it's like it wasn't really a rebuild. Getting Jordan Love, you can make an argument there's a rebuild there, then going the direction of the run game. Like a full-on fire sale is just not in the history books for me as a Packers fan or many Packers fans. So I think it's a little crazy. I think just the way they value their young talent and the talent that they drafted, just you would never get back the ROI that you would perceive being Gutekunst to the front office. So that also, I think, puts a snag in things. I mean, I don't know who wants to take those contracts on, though, too. That's the thing. Like, between Aaron Jones, being a running back contract, I know he's not getting paid that much, but Bakhtiari, I think, is getting $10 million a year. Rodgers' contract. I mean, there's other guys out there even yet that the Packers haven't signed or sort of extensions that are young talent that would also be a problem for teams on the road. I don't think we're in rebuild. I think it's crazy. There's no reason to rebuild. They really have all the pieces they need besides maybe a part or two on offense or just a philosophical conversation, maybe a little ayahuasca trip that just could resolve all the offensive struggles. But at the end of the day, like all the pieces are here. There's no reason to rebuild, retool, maybe to get rid of some like at the end of the year, maybe to tighten up. But I don't know. There's no reason to think that they need to be a rebuild. It's just a gut reaction. And Todd Varney joining the chat as always.
Yeah, we are in fully no dongs out right now. We are zipped up. We're in chastity belt mode right now. Like we are not putting anything out right now. And it's unfortunate because I'm going to get myself in trouble. But you know what I mean? I wish we could go full dongs out for Dobbs, but our offense just not at a point where we can do that right now. No. I do want to bring up one tweak because I've got kind of two ways to get to the same point on this topic. Jacob Morley, friend of the program. He's never actually been on, but he's a Game On Wisconsin guy, so a friend of the program. He tweeted this after the game on Sunday. He said, this team, Packers, groveled for 12 to come back, and he did. You may think they should be in sell mode after a 3-4 start. Maybe correct that he's throwing his opinion in there too, but I promise the team is not thinking that way. Matt, I agree 1,000,000% with that. Like, you're not doing everything this team did, logically speaking, to bring Aaron Rodgers back and make sure he is a part of the team, and you give him that massive contract for this year without having the expectation he is going to be around throughout this year, whatever this year and this next couple of years ends up looking like. And if you're not getting rid of him, then you're not rebuilding. And to be frank with you, I don't think that would make sense anyway. Even if you could move that contract, do you know that it's going to work out in the end? The concept of rebuilding, and it's easier in theory to rebuild in the NFL because you get the draft every year. It's not like you have a farm system. It's not like the NBA where only one or two guys on a team make that big of an impact in terms of superstar impact. So in theory, you can do it more quickly. Everybody seems to ignore the part about where maybe it doesn't work and that maybe you tear it down and try to build through the draft and get these extra picks. Do you trust Brian Gutekunst to make the right picks right now? Do you trust him right now to find the next quarterback of the Green Bay Packers? I'm not saying that he can't do it. I'm not. He absolutely could. You know the quarterbacks he's liked in recent drafts, Matt? Jordan Love, who we both agree is not it, and Drew Lock, who the whole world knows for a fact is not it. Those are the kind of guys that Goot has liked in recent draft years. Does that inspire a whole lot of confidence? Everybody in the whole world is apparently down on Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, and granted, neither of them have been great. Wyatt's barely played in his first season. Don't fret yet. I mean, you draft for the future, not just for 1 year. But also, if you're that down on the most recent top 3 picks the Packers have made, Christian Watson, because he hasn't done much and he's been hurt a bunch. Wyatt has not played at all, and Walker has just kind of been there. You want to trust that guy and that staff to rebuild and completely tear down the team and build from the ground up and keep Gary and Alexander and that's it, and just tear everything else down? That just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I get it if it's what you want. I get it if the reaction is this team sucks, it's not going to get better as presently constructed. I still think you've got a better chance to put out an entertaining product and at least have an outside chance than just say, screw it, fire sale, we're tearing it all down. Again, everybody's entitled to their opinion, Matt. I just don't think it makes a whole lot of sense at this point, whether based on the Packers' own logic or just on the logic of, do you trust that the rebuild will actually work in a timely manner?
Yeah. Wild concept, just people overreaction Monday. So let them do their thing. But at the end of the day, there's just no situation there's a scenario where I could see we're going to get rid of some assets, but I don't think that happens right now. And if it is, it's not a ton of guys. It's maybe you move Jordan Love to the Colts because they're running out with your boy Sam Ehlinger. At the end of the day, I think there's a situation where it might happen, but it's not going to be a complete fire sale.
With that, we are a little bit short on time, so let's jump right into our expectations for this week's game against the Buffalo Bills, and significant to some, an early look at this week's betting lines. And Matt, I'm going to try to reverse the juju a little bit. We've been going to the same book for the lines. The lines that we have at a different book are actually exactly the same as the ones from the first one this week, but that doesn't matter. We're going to a different website to find them. So I'm not going to tell you what sportsbook we're using, but I will tell you a lot of Kings go there and they do like to draft a little bit. So that's where we're looking for the lines this week. The Packers, for the first time in Aaron Rodgers' career, are more than a double-digit underdog, against an opponent. The Bills are favored by 10.5 points at Orchard Park this week. The over-under is 47.5. To get to that, you either need the Bills probably to do most of that work on their own, or you think that this is the week the Packers offense finally turns it on. 10.5 points is a lot in the NFL, but also given where the Packers are and given where the Bills are, you can understand why there's such a huge disparity.
10.5 points. I knew the line. I knew it was going to be high, but 10.5, man, holy shit. It's just
huge.
It's tough to digest to be on that side of a line. It really is. We were talking before the show. I think the Bills are the best team in football right now. Nothing would really sway me from that opinion. Man, it's tough. I mean, I'm taking the opponent with the points recently. If I stick to that, means I really don't feel too good about the Packers. I have to take the Packers with the points. 10.5 is just so much. Like, back up against the wall, you're going to use 4 in a row. Like, that's crazy. I think the secondary as we progress through the week and other people, talk about this, like, I think the secondary of the Packers versus those receivers of the Bills is going to be awesome. Probably their toughest opposition since they played basically just Justin Jefferson week 1.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see where they're at with everyone just kind of being more in sync. Everyone's healthy. I think that'll be fascinating to look at, but I will definitely take the Packers with the points because 10.5 points is a crap ton. Like, that's just way too many points not to go with them with. 47.5 we're sitting at, correct?
Yes, 47.5 for the total.
I would love to say the over, but I don't think that's achievable with the way the Packers are moving the ball and like what's going to change them going across country, playing in a hostile environment, just seeing absolute catastrophe of people diving on tables. Like, that's going to just give them stage fright in and of itself. I'm going to say Packers lose and go with the under, but they cover, which is obviously pretty easy to do. So it makes the math a little bit less fun. We'll go with, oh man, that's a tough cover actually if I go that route. Let's go Bills 28. Does that math even work? Yeah, Bills 28, Packers 19.
28-19. Wow, that would be 47 of the 47.5 to go with the under, but that would be a cover.
That was the quickest math I've ever done in my head on a prediction like this, and I don't even know how 19. I don't know how it works. Not going to say I do.
There could be a missed extra point in there.
There could be, or 2, or 1.
Yeah,
yep.
Two field goals, touchdown, second touchdown with a mixed extra point. Oh yeah, that's certainly in play.
Regardless of the prediction, man, dude, like thinking they're going to go 0-4 now is just, it's crazy. Like, they haven't won a game since September.
Yeah. 3 straight losses on the 23rd. October 2nd.
Oh, they did beat the Patriots. That's right. But that didn't even seem like a win. That honestly,
it felt like a loss.
Still feels like a loss. I even mentioned in the beginning, like Bailey Zappa, they lost. Like, it. I don't know. These 4 games have just been. It's been a tough to digest. I don't see how it's going to get any easier going over the Bills. That's, man. You got to at least get the momentum going strong, going up against the Lions, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you covered pretty much the exact way I feel about this. That's too many points to pick against, especially when you are as much of a blind fan as I am at times. I will say the Packers can stay in this game if they are able to, well, I mean, it's easy to say run the ball and eat up clock and all that, but they really haven't been committed to that. If they can slow this game down and limit the possessions, I think 1 or 2, lightning in a bottle kind of drives can keep this one close. I will go 24-20 Bills. I think the Packers can keep it relatively. I mean, it's going to take a miracle effort relative to what they've done the last 3 weeks. I'll be honest. It's not something that I'm necessarily expecting, but is it possible? Sure. I'm trying to remain optimistic. For our guy Jude in the Game on Wisconsin YouTube comments, I'm going to stay as optimistic as I can about this game. Packers only lose by 4. Lower scoring game. I think that's the best way the Packers have a chance to stay in this one. Keep it a lower scoring game. Don't let Josh Allen go insane. Maybe you've got a chance. That's what I'm hoping and praying for. If you pray to any sort of deity, maybe this is the game for that. We lost Matt at the last moment here. He was just so sick of talking about this garbage offense that we just had to dip out at the very last minute. We do have one last comment we'll get to here before we wrap things up from our guy Todd Varney in the Game on Wisconsin YouTube comments. How many of those 20 points come from the defense? I would say 10 directly because of the defense. Get a field goal because a drive won't stall or is going to stall out after a Josh Allen fumble. Maybe get a pick 6 as well. Allen has been a little bit prone to the turnover this season in his career. But Matt, as we welcome you back in right as we are dipping out for the end of the show, keep it close, keep it respectable. Maybe that is the kind of momentum shift that this Packers team needs. Whatever it takes, we'll be talking all about it on social media. Follow Matt on Twitter at Matt_FRA_. I'm on Twitter, as always, at BrendanDZW. Make sure you are following Game On Wisconsin across your social media channels. Check out the YouTube, check out all the different podcasts as well, wherever you end up getting your podcasts. Matt, have as much fun as you possibly can have on Sunday Night Football. I am very nervous. It'll be miserable, but maybe we'll get lucky. Sounds
Fun
like me in high school, but maybe we'll get lucky.
Had if anyone is an AT&T customer service person, 3 episodes in a row, right at the end of the show, internet goes out. I don't have internet issues all week. I work from home. I'm on streams. I do podcasting. I'll stream 7 games at once. How? Like, what the dude?
They're mad about the offense too. They're furious about the offense. The haters are sick. And so am I. Frankly, we're all sick about it at this point. Well, hopefully the internet will get fixed by next week when we go live Monday nights, 8 o'clock Lambeau time, as always, on Game On Wisconsin, live on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook. We will talk to you then. For Matt Freilich, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. And as always, this has been this whole show has gone to hell at the very end. This has been The Final Dump, as always, brought to you by Game On Wisconsin.
Well, Wayne, I think this is one that Vince Lombardi and George Halas would be proud of.
You could have given me the touchdown. Then it's hard to overturn. You know what I mean?
I understand.
That's a good effort, though. Wasn't it? That's a pretty good effort.